Hi, friends. I'm Andy Green, and this week it's time for me to get naked. Really naked. Because this is the Naked Man Podcast. This week, I modeled nude. I did a life drawing session in front of 5 artists in Pasadena at Michael Olivares' wonderful home. And we are recording live after that right now in Pasadena. And I am going to be joined with a couple of the artists that were, what's the word? Wonderful enough to stay and be patient with us for this. So I'm going to talk first with Carrie, or Datura Divinity. Did I do it right? I think
Yes.
I did.
Yes, you did it right.
Yeah. Carrie, thank you for sticking around.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for modeling for us.
How'd it go?
I thought it went great.
Say that again.
I thought it went great. Amazing. Oh my God. Life-changing.
What were you, I know I was nervous going in. Is it any different when you know the model going in?
That's a good question. I actually haven't known any of the models that I have drawn. So I don't know. I just was excited for you. And yeah, it was just kind of a nice nuance to just like be able to draw and see your own process of like modeling and posing. I think it's a really collaborative thing. So I think that's whether you do know the person or don't. I mean, it's a newer side to you that I'm seeing. So it was kind of nice to see you in your element.
I feel like I got in it eventually. Yeah, I think the first bit was hard, but yeah, it is like this. It feels like a push and pull, sort of like we're all in a band in some weird way. When you're coming to, to draw these things, are there certain things that you are looking for? You don't have a plan going in, I'm assuming, because you don't know what the poses are going to be or whatever, but like, how do you start?
For my process, since I do digital art, I just go with like any colors I'm feeling. And that might be based on my mood. So, and also kind of like whatever vibe I'm getting off of the model at the time. So for me, it's just like getting comfortable with your body and how you're carrying yourself, and then kind of seeing like, oh, what do I want to focus on? So I was like, oh, do I want to focus on Andy's hair, Andy's shape, or the shadowing? So I just try to choose one and kind of stick with it. Yeah,
that makes sense. What colors were coming up for you today?
just like strawberry colors, or like,
I was holding a strawberry for a
yes,
long time.
I know. But even before that, I was just getting like pinks and blues and a little bit of yellow here and there. Just like very like playful, like pastel colors. Kind of reminds me of childhood a little bit.
Oh, wow. I mean, I love the pastel nostalgia, like sort of childhood thing. I think that's there's something, even though I'm, an adult being naked in front of people, which kind of feels very grown up. There's also something about being a kid in that moment. Or there's like, I definitely was having conversations with child Andy during a couple of the poses to be like, Andy, can you believe we're doing this? Like, what is this is pretty cool. Especially if you remember the one where I was looking at the corn. The corn was baby Andy.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I was actually wondering what conversation you were having with the corn, because I was like, I feel like they're having a moment, and I'm just like spying on like a very special, intimate moment between you and the corn.
Well, I mean, I was sort of like, oh, corn is going to feed me, and especially I'm hungry right now, so I was like in the mood of like, let's get nourishment, and I was just, corn. It was a fun scene of like, there was all these vegetables and stuff, but the corn had like a little smiley face and was very like in its what do you call husk, so it felt very much like a baby, and I just was sort of like felt like partly my kid but also partly me, and I was just sort of like I feel like I was just in love with that corn.
I love that. And something else I was thinking is just like being like naked in front of people. It's just like when we're kids, we all come into this world naked, right? And like for a while, we don't know like, oh, we're supposed to put clothes on. We're just like running around like with our family or family friends. And yeah, so it's kind of interesting that choosing to consciously like shed that in adulthood is a way to return to that.
that's a good point. And it is, I feel like I'm shedding like 30 years of wearing clothes in some weird way. Um, and like, I don't know. Yeah. Going from like very sheepishly to like taking off my robe to like, sort of running across to grab some grapes to be like, well, I guess that's okay. I don't have to cover up to go past like whatever. But, I don't know. It does the way, I don't know, just the way I think about my body or the way I think about bodies in general. It just sort of feels scary or feels like it could be threatening, or it feels like, I mean, either way, I don't, in this scenario, 5 people around me, it's sort of more like I'm the object, or I could be the one in danger, but I never felt that at all. I think it was more like anything that I was worried about was, I mean, it's always a good enough, like, am I giving the artist something interesting or cool or new or whatever? But, as always, it's just like, oh, I just need to be Andy.
I definitely got that as like the artist drawing you. I was like, oh, this is Andy.
What did you learn about Andy?
I learned that Andy, I would say more, I mean, because I do talk to you, we text, and I just felt like I could never see like if you were worried. You just seemed like you were so fine and so comfortable. Yeah, just like open, just so open to exploring and possibilities and collaboration. And there's also like that interest, maybe you were like processing. It's kind of interesting when I study like people's faces too, that they change depending how long the pose is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just wondering like, what are they thinking about? They're probably thinking about like, what am I going to eat next? How many more minutes is left?
Sometimes that, for sure. Yeah, I mean, did you have any, I mean, yeah, you can ask those questions. I'm here to answer those. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, a lot of times I was like, oh, shit, I chose a pose that hurts. Mostly just that strawberry one.
Oh,
that one was, and I did, mention like, oh, I could, move. Because I also had this sense that it was like, because I was uncomfortable, it just like wouldn't look good-ish. But I also, I have the bloody knee that was just in the center. So that was the only time I think I got like self-conscious and was like, wait, why am I? But then when everyone was like, oh no, stay, I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to be uncomfortable for 20 minutes. But it's not like an uncomfortable because I'm naked. It's just an uncomfortable place for my body to be in. Yeah. So I was like spasming a little bit, but it was fine.
We appreciate your sacrifice because it was great. I loved it. And I think other people really enjoyed that pose too, and how you like incorporated it. And it's funny because I wouldn't have gotten that you were uncomfortable, from that pose. You just seem so like graceful and like elegant.
Wow. Carrie needs to be my marketing manager or PR. Thank you. I mean, that's partially, I think, just performing, because I was thinking like, can they tell that I'm uncomfortable? And it's like, sounds like not, which is interesting. And I think that's speaks to my life a lot. People don't see that because I'm able to hide it. And this was like a safe place, or like I wasn't, if I was truly, in an ungodly amount of pain, or like really was uncomfortable, I would have said something. But it felt like the good kind of pain for the most part, of just like, oh, this is. But I think that was my main takeaway, is like, oh, this is a workout. This is staying still is hard.
Yeah, and a lot of engagement, but also like trying to show that, and from what I've seen, because I've never modeled, to like pose, but like relax, but also like you have to like hold up your body.
Yeah, I kept noticing that I was tensing, and then like, and this, it felt like very in my body and very meditative, of like, okay, just like loosen my throat, loosen my hands, my feet. Those are all the places where I just like grip and tighten all the time. And I just sort of kept checking in with my body. So it really did feel like this conversation with my body the whole time about like what we could do and what would be cool for people or cool for me to do. I don't know what I was feeling.
I was curious if different poses brought up like different feelings or thoughts, if you noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yes, definitely. Like the one where I covered my face was definitely, and that was intentional. I sort of felt like, okay, I just want to like close my eyes and be internal. I was sort of trying to process any sort of guilt or shame that I had or hadn't processed, or just sort of like I made a mistake, and be in that rather than but like accepting of it. It was just sort of like, this is where I'm at and this is okay. And actually it was sort of, I mean, that was one of my favorite ones to do because I was just like, oh, okay, I am just going to be, you know, in it, you know. And the one with the strawberry, I feel like I had the most change. Like I was like, okay, I'm in love with the strawberry / I want to devour this strawberry and like fuck this strawberry. And then I was like, I fucking hate this strawberry. And also just like, I kept thinking I was going to drop it. Like, I just felt like I don't have any concept of like actually holding this anymore. Like, it just sort of feels like it's not my hand. But I was also sort of just looking, I think I don't know. What was I feeling in that moment? I mean, aside from just pain and wanting it to be over, but it was more just like, I would get out of the just purely modeling and be like, oh wait, Andy, you're here. This is kind of exciting and cool. You know, telling 12-year-old, 5-year-old Andy that would be like, what? Crazy. The one where I was like the sword in front and I was like looking down, that one in particular, that one I wanted to be sort of angry or just like actually be looking down on you, the artists, and something. And I felt like I wanted to be powerful, but it also might just look like funny because as I've definitely in my life, whenever I'm angry, sometimes people find it funny because I just, maybe they're not used to me being angry, or I just, I think I'm a funny, angry person, or like ineffectual as an angry person. So I have no idea what comes out when I was like, felt like regal. And then, I did the hero pose. That was fun. That one, I felt the freest actually for that one. That was cool.
Is it because like your chest was open, like you were just like facing, at least towards me, it was like forward? Yeah,
I think that was one of the few where it was also just the easy, like it felt like I wasn't actually holding anything. I was just sort of up. So that was nice. You're really good at asking questions. So like if you have any questions for me.
I am a therapist in training, so I got to practice.
Yeah, good plug. We need more therapists. We need more people taking therapy. Cue commercial ad. But yeah, do you have any more like things that you were curious about or wondering about?
Yeah, something we kind of touched on, but we decided not to continue, was like you were saying that you were looking at different places to focus on in the room. And I'm curious, like, depending on the pose, depending on like, I guess, the placement of the pose, like either beginning, middle, or end, did you find yourself thinking about certain things? I know there's also like plenty of art in Michael's space. I don't know if that influenced it.
Yeah, a lot of times I would land on a piece of art, but sometimes it was just like a dot on the wall, and I was just like, ooh, there's like a, some sort of a hole or like a little thing that I just noticed. It reminds me of like, when you're doing yoga and you need something to balance or center you. The whole thing felt very meditative because like in the moment, I know I was having a lot of different thoughts and things, but right now I'm sort of like, it's kind of gone. A lot of it was this just mindfulness practice of like, which I didn't necessarily expect, but it makes sense because I'm just sort of, it is meditation except for just being in a pose, because I was like, oh, I'm going somewhere else. Oh, no, let's go back to the point on the wall. And I would notice my face would change. Sometimes I did that intentionally. I was like, sometimes I want to be like, when I was lying down, my eyes were open for all of it except for the last couple minutes. And I wanted to be like dead with my eyes open. But then I'm like, okay, now I'm just gonna close my eyes. I don't know if anyone noticed that or anyone, but to me, I was just sort of like I don't know. I was testing to see if anyone would notice that or if they wanted to draw me with eyes closed or whatever. But I mean, yeah, when I was doing the dreamer pose, I definitely was sort of just talking about like, if I can do this, like, and also feeling good about it, like it is very empowering to be like, oh my God, I'm sweating my ass off, but it's okay. So that was like, at the beginning, I was panicked about that, but that's why I sweat. It's anxiety related.
I kind of appreciate that as an artist though, because when you had turned around and said like be prepared for some butt sweat, I actually liked how like, because it kind of brings a different element, or like the light will hit you differently in that way. And I was like, okay, so how do I incorporate
a glistening?
This? You're glowing.
I mean, I feel like it's just whenever my brain is over, like just going, things are Carrie, clearly we could talk forever about this, and I look forward to a part two, whether it's on camera or just, the two of us. So thank you so much. And Carrie gave me flowers, everyone. They weren't there. They're over there. You saw them if, but yeah, I really appreciate you and your talents, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
I'm excited too. Thank you for posing for us.
Yeah.
What up, Andy? My good friend Andy, who's, come into his own as a, artist, creator person and model and stuff. I remember introducing you as a model, I don't know, probably like a good year and a half ago or whatever, in front of my art group that started during the pandemic. So,
And wow, look at you. You're connecting dots already. And Shirley is, I don't think I would be here or be doing this without you, Shirley, because you were the first one who asked me to model and that one did have clothes and had a, I had a bat, so I felt very powerful.
Yeah.
And it was in public too, which was kind of, not scary. I was just more like, this is weird, but it was also cool. And I liked it. And the art that came from it was so much fun, and everyone's so talented and kind. So that was like, I think that was definitely the origin of today. So it's really cool and meaningful that you came. So
I tried not to listen to I did not listen to the most recent podcast you dropped about your uncircumcised penis, because I just didn't want to focus on that, and I didn't think I'd have time to draw that kind of detail either, because I'm coming off of like a 2-person art show where I draw like basically a bunch of hairy animals, so I didn't really want to focus on your like hairy snatch, but
this is amazing.
It's great to see you, kind of not just come into your own, because that implies, kind of like that things have come full circle somehow and you're like the most fully involved you could be, but it's like, it's really just a process. And I know many people who model nude sometimes, and like it's really just about like feeling comfortable with the people, and really getting kind of like in our community, really, because I mean, like, I couldn't do half the things I did or have done just without being like, without that art community, without just being able to focus on just that, and not being like, oh, do I have to like promote this, or I have to like be selling something, or like, am I being productive enough or something, just to be able to just be like, you know what, hey, at least my friends will show up, and we'll have a good time, and maybe I'll get to hear about some of the stuff they're working on is really reward enough.
That's it's beautifully said. And also, it's like, I feel like in some way, being in that community also sort of makes you more brave and daring. It's inspiring. And like, creativity just inspires more creativity. Like I felt that in this room, and was just like, oh my God, that's what was coming out of me, just bending.
That's one of the things I feel like is definitely the best thing about the art community. If you're really into it, it's just like, at the end of the day, if you're not looking to like, sell your own prints or anything like that, like creativity only adds if you really want to channel it, Yeah, it's really like a beautiful thing.
Coming to, a life drawing session, what are you focusing on, or what's your brain space going in? I mean, you mentioned that you didn't want to focus on my hairy snatch, what's your process? Like, what do you pick up on, or how do you, like, by pose or whatever, like, how do you focus, or what's your process?
I mean, for me, at least, this approach is I'm really just getting back in life drawing. So, after doing the 2-person show, I did a lot of like animals and very kind of like close range, very controlled movements, and to be able to do something a little more expressive and trying to capture the movement of somebody's still pose was really helpful in getting me back into that, and also helpful to have a friend to pose, because I mean, sometimes I do know friends as models who pose, but just to be extra kind of informal about it was cool, because I didn't feel like I had to do any kind of certain output. I feel like you were trying to just try stuff out, and I'm just trying to try stuff out, and that's like really the base of like what I feel the artistic community, or the part that I come back to, is like really about. So
because if there was pressure to be like, hey, Shirley, you gotta make 3 things out of this, it's or whatever, that'd be terrible. And or if I have to like get 7 amazing poses out of, or whatever it is. But I think that lack of pressure. When I was going to ask you, because I mean, like I said, you were the one who sort of was like, hey, will you model for us? What was the, I mean, yeah, what was the impetus for that? Or
Well,
what did you,
I mean, I don't want to say I'm psychic or anything, but like I felt like that the Naked Man podcast sort of called for this kind of thing. And like, since you were interested in modeling at the time, and we were a pandemic art group who that was assembling to draw some people, and we're happy to have that practice. So, it was kind of like one of those things about like the artistic community kind of supporting itself and sustaining itself during the pandemic. Just like, it's like, hey, like we're all just trying to practice here, if you'll practice modeling for us, we'll practice drawing for you.
It is that give and take, or it is that like, I mean, it's collaboration, it's play. It's like, it's so gratifying as just someone who a lot of times is not necessarily a visual artist. And so a lot of the things I have written so many things that has never been made and probably never will made. And that will always be true. But to like literally sit down for 15 minutes and then just immediately see like art, I'm just like that. It's just the coolest thing. And I like really admire you and everyone who does it. So it's like, I mean, I'm always humbled, and, I don't know how to say or get like compliments about like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing great. I'm just like here. But I guess that's it, being here.
Being there. And I don't think you can fake being like genuinely interested in what someone's up to artistically or anything, And so like, it really benefits people like you and me who just kind of want to just learn from the artistic community and soak up whatever we can, because it's like, hey, it's LA, there's endless amount of opportunity and creativity there. So it's like, I don't think you can fake like just being interested in genuinely in someone's project or anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like you are always so genuine and so interested in everyone's project, and like, again, I just want to like thank you for, creating this community in this space and like connecting, because that's how I connected with Michael, who then, so it's all, all thanks to Shirley.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure that's a teaser for the next one. But yeah, no, Michael's great. He's also like very just community based, and it's been a great hub here in Pasadena to, just be able to chill out in somebody's house and do some life drawing, and, no real pressure and like, what the output is, or because there's definitely drawing groups that are semi-competitive. It's like, hey, what are you doing now? Or like, oh, let's look at your stuff and see if we'll follow you, that kind of thing. But
that sounds
it's just
terrible.
like, it just makes it so unfun. So
yeah, that's not what art should be, but it's also very what our country sort of trains us to be. So thank you for being the counter to that.
Oh, for sure.
And welcome, Michael Olivares, to your own table, to your own studio here, your own home. And what I was going to say is that I feel like going into new spaces is always, I keep doing it, and that's kind of the show, but it's never easy. It's not my comfort zone, but I also, because I'm always worried about judgment, or I'm worried about being good enough, or being whatever, it's expectations, and I guess I just want to thank you for like, I feel like setting just a really safe space, but also just like giving me a shot, and saying, sure, I'll, get naked in my house.
Well, it's par for the course for me as you get to know me, but
yeah, it's true. You're just looking for more models, right?
It's just sort of a surrealism. I gotta fill my life with a little bit of chaos, or else I, get a little, my art gets a little boring then.
How come?
I guess everything could be related to childhood, madness, and you get kind of used to some trauma around. And if there's everything's coasting, then you're kind of getting anxiety for not having anxiety, sort of thing. For me, so.
Shit. So you're so used to the chaos and the anxiety that if you don't have it, you're like,
well, something worse is gonna happen.
You're holding your breath,
I guess.
So what about having chaos feeds your creativity?
Dang, that's a good question. Because it feels less IKEA as an art maker. Like I'm trying not to commodify my art and my life, because everything's commodified as much as it is here, especially in LA. So I think a little bit of madness makes it feel more healthy to me to make art. I draw from it. I hear stories of like the surrealists or Basquiat, and they're in a situation, and then they have to go figure it out. They go to the alley and find a box to hide in, and that's their show. They rise out of a box that they just found 2 minutes ago. If I have more situations where I got to go run to an alley and find a box, then it'll be more memorable, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Push on.
it's very evocative, and but it speaks to like there's some confidence that you'll find a box or whatever it is, right? Like, so there's, and that speaks to, I think, bravery or daring to be like, okay, I'm going to put myself into the chaos. And I mean, you mentioned already that you're like used to it, so like chaos is what you're used to. But I also feel like what you're saying is that chaos is real, and we spend our whole lives saying that everything is normal and okay. And so it's like, so it makes sense that like chaos is honest, right? And that sort of feels like that makes the art honest.
To me, it's a little bit of a better connection with the model. Just to bring it back to that, is you're kind of experiencing complete anxiety of being in the present, and if we're not in the present with you, sort of feeding off of that and doing the work because you're doing the work, then it's a bit of a voyeuristic thing. It becomes something different, and there's a lot of that online, right? There's a ton of naked people online, but for once being completely present with someone experiencing their nudity, and we're having to interpret that vulnerability, that anxiety and chaos, I like that. It brings a lot out of my work.
I know what you mean, because I think the only time where I felt like I sort of lost it was the last pose, where I mean I was laying down, so it was easy, but that was when like people were sort of packing up to leave, or there was some like more commotion, and I was sort of like, wait, I'm still doing this, what are we doing? Like,
exactly.
Like I was sort of like, am I uninteresting? Is this not good enough? You know, I was like, are you not entertained? What's the, you know, like, but then I was like, oh man, but I was also like, oh no, they're like, they just got what they wanted, or they're fine. But I was, you know, but that was one of the only times I think where I just like noticed like the energy sort of shifted a little bit, but it could be the other way if no one. But I think I did feel that everyone was just sort of like here with me, and it's not even so much it is the nudity, but it's also just like, I mean, the primal humanness of just like, I had some props which were fun to play with, but it's all you. It's just me, and I'm like, ugh.
And you're like, everyone is paying attention to me, so the second that pulls or shifts, you're very sensitive to that. And I think that's probably the experience of most actors and people in the spotlight. Probably I'm always behind the camera or drawing quietly in my garret.
But you have modeled before though, right?
I did, yeah. This is many years ago at Art Center and different places when I had a six-pack. So, I mean, but you know, ego and self-consciousness is always there. I mean, it was there then when I had this, you know, people were like, you have a perfect body. And I was like, I don't think so. So it's all still, you know, relative, because now I'm still will jump in there, and thankfully I'm surrounded by artist friends that are like, you still got it, but
nice.
It's still nerve-wracking, and you know, it helps me to draw better sometimes, to know pain and creating three-dimensional spaces and negative spaces and drama and uniqueness with poses. Sort of a naturalist. I like being nude, but being in front of people is always going to be nerve-wracking. So you did really well. You seem like a natural.
Well, thank you. Well, because I mean, you mentioned it, like, you know, when the attention was drawn away from me, I did feel that, and it did feel uncomfortable. But it's also, I mean, at the start, the attention on me is what feels uncomfortable, because it's just like, oh, like that's always the pressure. It feels like pressure to me whenever people are paying attention or coming to see something that I'm doing. It was with sports, it was with, you know, it's with this podcast, you know, or anything. It's just like, anytime I'm like, oh, here, come and see something that I'm doing, that scares the shit out of me, because I feels like I have to uphold some sort of promise. I have to, but I think it's me doing some mental, like it's like I'm coercing everyone to do this. It's like, no, everyone said yes. Everyone came here and said yes and wanted to do it. But I think I've so ingrained this idea that like, if someone doesn't come away with, whether it's this episode or a 10-minute conversation with me or a softball game, if they didn't come away having fun or something, it's like my fault. Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure on yourself.
It's fucking stupid. Yeah.
I mean, I'm right there with you as an artist. I'm like, come to my show, look at my own and it's very ego. I mean, it's, if you think about it, it's pretty absurdly self-centered in that I'm like, look at my creations here. It's in your face. I'm putting them on the wall. Everybody come and spend all your hard-earned money in this tough economy on my own personal. I mean, yeah, I have all sorts of conflict constantly about that, but we have enough self-doubt as creators. Yeah. And I think I feel, if anything, from ancestors, that just create is good enough. It's hard. It's like a responsibility that people, I don't think, have anymore often, or a value, like with griots, like or jesters. Oh. Like they speak truth to power, right? Yeah. Or they create a song, or they, griot or musician, ancient artist. They create a thing from their perception, and people used to really value it, and we still have that role. I think it's just not as talked about, that we're the culture changers, culture bringers, storytellers, because who else is? I mean, TV, sure, they have scripted stories or ads, but I mean, we're the ones truly throwing ourselves out there to create new things, just completely based on color and materials and ideas.
It's the most raw, right? Like, because any TV show has to go through channels, I mean, literally, but like has to be like, okay, this needs to be a certain length, and also, marketable, but also it needs to have act 1, 2, 3, all the different rules that associate with it. So I know exactly what you mean, but and I think there's, the other thought is that I think there's like a billion jesters. And that's what social media, it's just sort of like, it's watered it down too, and I'm not saying that like, oh my God, let's put us on a pedestal or anything like that. It's more just like, there's just so many people yelling or saying stuff and claiming it to be, I mean, it's everyone's truth, I suppose. But to me, it's just like, so it's just so loud and so scary. So there's something, the reverse is what you do, where it's just like, it's very internal. It's just very like, this is what comes out of me. And there's, I mean, obviously there's external factors there, but I don't know. I think you're right. There is something like pure there that is missing from a lot of, entertainment. And I say that as someone who moved here to, make entertainment, but coming here.
Entertainment's important. I mean, I had a teacher in Art Center that said, the world would probably stop revolving if no one made movies or books or anything anymore. I mean, not in a physics sense, but I think it's important for all cultures to tell our stories. It goes to like I think a Winston Churchill quote where they were cutting all the programs, cultural programs, for the war effort, and he said, "Well, what the hell? Then they win. Like, what's the point? If we give up all of that, then they won." And so I really value all this work. It keeps me alive. It's therapeutic. I value your work. I mean, I think in the sea, it's like news or magazines. There's just so many words and pictures. So if we fight for white space, which is to me is like an analogy for truth, is it's powerful. It's just like clean us truth, and yeah, we got to entertain too, but it's the root you could always see with people. It's like in gardening too. To me, it's like if you plant the seed, it'll grow in the mountain, and it's like perennial, instead of like you just go get the roses from the store and they're gonna wilt. So if they have poor motives, or just to copy the next person that's making money, then I think it's the cut rose in this analogy. Ooh. That's just what do I know? But I'm thinking, if I plant seeds of with truth, then if nobody sees how I battled the color theory and the brought in allusions to surrealism, then at least I entertain myself. And in 20 years, or my friends, and I explain to them, or we're working on some of the same things, then maybe in 50 years they'll be like, oh, that was that movement, that was that group, because we go back and look at surrealists and the happenings and different movements, and even if it was just a few people really pushing their edge, they definitely are appreciated by history. So whether I'm appreciated by history or not, at least I'm doing my best at the point to make my art.
That was Very well said, Michael. And I appreciate you. And that's in the present. And this is now logged for all history. So Michael, you did it. And I feel like we went other places besides just life drawing, but I think that's what we wanted to talk about. So I just thank you for, inviting me here and welcome and being such a great, like, I feel like it was a very easy collaboration. Like we just sort of showed up and you just were like, oh yeah, do whatever. Just don't, move the cat litter, I don't know. You didn't even say that, but, but yeah.
It was like a natural, spontaneous thing. Yeah. I think I want to be a counterpoint to, there's a lot of academic figure drawing and industry, a lot of opportunities. And what I going through art school, it's like my favorite stuff was the weird hole in the wall where it was about the lifestyle. And I see a lot of like students and industry people, they might be really good at one thing, but they're not getting the Bob Dylan and the hearing the wine glass break. There's all this,
or the cat jump,
the cat jumping all over the place, random art pets. And
again, that's the chaos.
Super important. Hey, back to the chaos.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Back to the chaos. And thank you everyone for, sticking with us through the chaos of this. I think the beautiful chaos of this episode. So yeah, thank you. I honestly, please share, subscribe, like, do all the different things and send this to people and let us know how the art turns out, what you think of the art. And because everyone that was here deserves some feedback and your attention. So yeah, I mean, I'm good.